But it isn't irrational to fear the modern world's most violent religious ideology. I describe it as such because, according to the religionofpeace.com website, Islamist terrorists have carried out some 46,602 deadly terror attacks somewhere in the world since their Twin Tower massacres of the 9th of September 2001, or more than 5 every day. Just in the week from July the 6th to 12th this year, there have been 35 attacks in 12 countries, killing 70 people and injuring 32. There are two broad divisions within Islam, as I'm sure your lordships know, between Sunni and Shia Muslims, with many subsects which don't often agree with each other. And the vast majority of these attacks have been on other Muslims. My lords, I understand there is a popular conception that the word Islam means peace, whereas in fact it means submission to the will of Allah or the Muslim God. Devout Muslims should obey the Quran and emulate the life of Muhammad. This is unfortunate because the Quran contains over 100 verses which encourage Muslims to kill or subdue non-Muslims. And in 627, Muhammad ordered the death of 600 Jews in one afternoon. The Islamists' view of this, my lords, is that peace will be achieved when our planet is ruled by Islam. My lords, Islam's Sharia law is already running de facto in the United Kingdom via some 80 Muslim arbitration tribunals. These discriminate harshly against Muslim wives, whose husbands have only to say, "I divorce you," 3 times, to leave them divorced and often destitute. The Sharia allows Muslim men to have 4 wives at a time, most of whom are having at least 2 children. So the Muslim population is going up 10 times faster than our national average. On past trends, Birmingham and 9 other English local authorities.
We'll have to look at what's meant by voluntary. I know at first blush, voluntary and compulsory seem to be perfectly straightforward, simple expressions opposite the one to the other. But let me just ask one question. Suppose it were decided that those who had dependents still abroad could not claim tax relief on their behalf. Now, no doubt, that change, an administrative change which would bring our tax law into line with that of many other countries, would greatly stimulate the propensity to accept assistance with repatriation. Persuasion. I see. So you regard that as voluntary? Persuasion. I see. So that's voluntary. You class that as voluntary? Persuasion or intimidation? Well, you tell me. I want to know what you mean by voluntary. And I've given you an example of a government policy which would undoubtedly increase the propensity to accept assisted repatriation. Now, is that to be classed as voluntary repatriation? No, I would term that as an inducement to accept. And you regard that as voluntary. You ask me whether I have in mind voluntary or compulsory, and therefore I must know what it is that you regard as voluntary. Now I want you to tell me whether that would be voluntary repatriation.
No, I would think that would be intimidation.
Oh, I see. So, any policy which does not place every inducement before those who are here to remain here is, in your opinion, compulsory repatriation.
What is your motivation for bringing in such legislation? Why are you suggesting that should happen?
I'm suggesting it because if it is public policy that in order to avert evils which threaten all, including the immigrants, the prospective future size of the immigrant population shall be reduced, then the government would, in such matters as taxation, naturally and logically behave not on the assumption that this is a population permanently domiciled here, but that it is a population only temporarily domiciled here. And I gave you an example of it. And therefore, I'm pointing out that to talk about voluntary and compulsory as though they were single alternatives, monolithic alternatives, is nonsense.
Can I then ask you why any of you...
You've gone off that then.
define? How would you define compulsory? You see, I'm wondering.
Compulsory in the sense in which this term is used, I'm sure, but the sense which it conveys to the general public is that a person would be physically seized and deported, like a person being taken on board Majesty's ships of war at the end of the 18th century.
So where would you draw the line, Mr. Powell?
I draw it short of that.
How far short?
But we have to remember that on the other side, there is the alternative. We have to remember that we are making a choice of necessities. A choice, if you like, of evil.